Welcome! I wanted to go over some things with you about what the day looks like and then talk to you a little bit about what is coming up for next week. If we see here, hopefully each of you signed in, yes, and took any outstanding work that you had, as well as any adjusted calendars that were over there from last time if any of you didn't pick them up. So please note that the calendar adjustment has switched today's activity and Tuesday's activity. So I've printed out a new one there for you. The other thing that's over there is the schedule for speaking dates. If you weren't here, a date was assigned to you, and I sent that email out on Tuesday, but you can always refer to that under the informative speaking module in your Canvas page, or you can look at the paper, of course, there, as it's there for you. Today we are going to be opening our packets to page 35, which is the page that is the outlining handout, and we're going to be referring not only to page 35, but also page 36 to start to reference what some of that looks like. In class on Tuesday, however, that's what I want to point out to you really quick. First, I am going to be having you complete and submit a rough main point outline. And so what that means is I only want you to do one of your main points. It's going to be this rough draft of it, but it should still be in proper MLA and preparation outline format. So what does that all mean? You will come to hopefully understand a bit more about that as the class goes on, but simply know that that assignment is going to be due for us, but in class on Tuesday. And in case anybody is wondering, I'll also just throw this over here.
Does that mean you're giving us time in class to do it, or you want it to be?
I want it to be turned in that day as you come into class.
Oh, the beginning of class.
Okay. We will not be writing it in class. You should do this over the weekend. So here are your instructions. I want you to be actively working on your outline and speech, like it says, and I want to make sure that you understand the ins and outs of the MLA formatting as well as the citation. But after your little mini quiz on Tuesday, I think that each of you are getting a good start on that. 3, I want to make sure that you are correctly completing your outline prior to speech day. Like I told you before, I want to make sure that you're getting those 50 points full for what you're doing, and all the hard work that you have done is getting properly not only executed, but then by the time you get to the class, it's not like it's improperly organized. The flow is coherent and thought out, but also that content. And you can earn that 50 points is all done, and we're making sure that it's correct. For this assignment, you are going to outline one rough main point for your informative speech. The rules and guidelines for writing a preparation outline should be followed, and you can see the handouts that we're going to be doing today, the preparation outline part. And then the rough main point outline should be written in proper MLA format. So that means that you are going to be including the headings, you'll be doing the proper margins, at least including one in-text citation, and then you will also add on that works cited for the citation that you use. So like it says, you're required to use at least one outside support or source for support, and that goes along with like the example, a statistic or a testimony, something that you've taken from outside of yourself and utilized within the speech. And then I want you to please print and bring one hard copy of this draft to class with you. So you will be bringing it with you on that day. As a note, for my own rule, and as you will notice on the sample outline in your packet, that you do not, for me, need to print a supplemental page for your works cited. That's just a waste of space and a waste of paper. And any English instructor or other professor may just lose their mind over that, but what I want you to know is that you do not have to print that separate piece of paper for me. If it will fit at the end of your document, simply write works cited, space it, and then do continue as if it was a new page. Does that make sense to you? Okay, fantastic. So that's what I'm simply saying here. So get printed out, bring it to class with you, and if you need to go back over that assignment, it is in the outlining area, like I said before. So you can look at all of this information here if you would like to. There's some extra information, a video, of course, a reading for you, but hopefully this will all assist you in writing this assignment. Any questions about what the assignment is or what's due for it or anything like that? All right, y'all, sounds good. That being said, let me go ahead. Oh, there we go. And let's take a look then at a little bit about this thing called outlining. In public speaking, we outline rather than write papers. And so outlining, why do we do this? Because of what we are required to do in public speaking. We're not simply writing information for one reader to look at. Instead, we are writing down information that is going to prep us for being able to then deliver that speech. And so like I said, the basic public speaking class is really about getting you understanding 2 sides of the coin. That first side that we want you to build is something called organization. Organization. And remember, that has to do with all the content, how our ideas flow, our main points, how we support our ideas. And then on the other side, there's this other thing called, it starts with a lit and it ends with a very. Oh my gosh, y'all, yes! Fantastic. So you have the organization and you have the delivery. And in regards to outlining, outlining helps to foster both of those skills. Why do you think that outlining? So outlining, kind of by definition, or if we wanted to look at what an outline is, it is a visual framework for us to see what we are writing about or what we are speaking about. And I know that many of you have probably outlined before in other classes, whether it be an English class or you've done it for the brainstorming purposes of generating ideas. But in contrast, outlining for us is going to be as if we are writing a full and complete document in simple outline form. This visual framework allows us to start to see where our ideas are supporting each other, if there is a good balance to our speech. It allows us to see, maybe this concept needs some more support. Where are we, going? Does this claim need something else? I see now that I ended with a quotation. That's probably not correct. So there's a lot of different areas that the visual framework allows us to see in regards to organization. But on the other hand, recall how delivery is best assisted when we have something like a framework in front of us rather than paragraph format. When you're delivering a speech off of something that's written in paragraph format, what do we end up doing?
Reading it word for word.
Reading it word for word, absolutely. And we don't want to read in this class. And it usually is that we write down paragraph form and we start to lose our place. So we have to look back down, and then we end up just reading it. The visual framework allows you to have easier structure to see, to go forward, then to also put keywords and phrases so that you can speak easily on behalf of your topic. So we will utilize outlining in this class, but there are 2 different types of outlining that we will go over. The first is called the preparation outline. And like it says here at the top of your outlining page on 35, the 2 types of outlines we will study are called the preparation outline and the speaker's outline. The preparation outline is the one that you turn in to me. The preparation outline is the type of outline I want you to write for your sample. And so keep in mind that the preparation outline is the one that you turn into me for a grade. That is the one that should follow all of the specific rules that are followed here, letters A through H. And the speaker's outline is for you. These are your keywords and phrases and notes that you can bring up with you, 1 page front and back, or a note card for each main point, including your introduction and conclusion. These types of speaker's outlines are for your notes. I will never grade them, so however you decide to write them out is up to you, but I'm going to go over some suggested guidelines for effective delivery if we have yet to perfect what works best for us. Does that make sense with y'all? Yay! All right, fantastic. So, what else? Oh, that's it? Okay, good. Let's talk about the preparation outline. Yay! All right, y'all, the preparation outline, and if you don't have your page open or you don't have an outlining with the page also 35 and 36, make sure that you are somewhat seeing what other individuals are looking at. And in all honesty, I guess I can go ahead and put that on top. for you here, if we can start out together. Okay. No. Okay, great. So just keep that in mind. No problem. Let us look at some of these rules. So the preparation outline, by definition, if you want to write this down, and I would encourage you to do so, the preparation outline is everything the speaker intends to say in the speech. So a preparation outline, everything that the speaker intends to say in the speech. What do you think the key word here is?
Everything.
Oh, good. I love that. But let's go back. Let's say that you have everything there, and let's say that you skip a line. No. Yes.
Intend.
Because? Why do you think intend's a good word to leave there? What do we know about our circumstances or our situational analysis?
We forget what we're going to say, so we might have to improvise.
Okay, good. Maybe we've forgotten what we're going to say, so we have to improvise. And you'll know it because you wrote the speech and you know about the content, so you can improvise a little bit. What if I give you a 5 and you're only at main point number 1? Then you have to start dropping stuff, right? And so you may need to drop things. What if you're speaking to an audience and all of them are looking around like, no, what? I don't get it. Then you wouldn't simply go on. You would acknowledge the audience. I see that some of us may be a bit confused. Let me say that example in another way. And that will add on a little bit of time, right? And so often, depending on the circumstances, the environment, our audience, their particular needs and level, we may need to adjust from what's written on that paper. So the idea is that it's everything, yes, that we intend to say. But if you do not get around to saying everything that's on that paper, that's okay. And especially, I don't want you to have to say it in the order that it was written. Not everything has to be perfectly aligned like it's written. Because once you write that outline, you know that then you should take it and move it into your speaker's notes, right? And only practice from that speaker's outline. If we practice from the original outline, we're going to start to
Be mechanical.
memorize.
No.
And then you're going to want it to be exactly as you remembered it. And then when that line isn't exactly like you said it and remembered it, you're going to get tripped up, right? So practice only with those speaker's notes that have keywords and phrases. So if you say it differently every time, you do, but the idea is there. So why do we have this? Well, in the event, let's say that each of you are out and you're like, I'm going to be pitching my new company and I'm so excited. I've been working on this for years and years and years. And this is my one opportunity that I finally got, and these investors are coming to see me, and I cannot wait. It is a sure thing. And the night before you get food poisoning, you can't go.
Oh.
So what do? You only have a couple of no cards. Give it to somebody else with those no cards? And then they're like, building capital. Well, I think that this company will build capital. But if I had the full preparation outline, the idea is that I could pass it to you and you could be able to deliver the content or the speech as intended, with the message as intended, without having to worry. Does that make sense to y'all? So somebody can go and they can deliver the speech in the same way. So on the day that you come in to speak, I should be able to take your outline, and I should essentially be able to take it, and if I looked over it a couple times, I would be able to deliver it just as you intended. Does that make sense to y'all? Okay, good. I mean, obviously I would need some time if it was about a content that I didn't understand, but this is where we go with it. So we should always have it written out in full in that way. So here's what we will be graded on, as I like to put it, but mostly here's what you are going to want to put to make a comprehensive understanding of your topic. So you are going to need to make your proper MLA heading, as we see at the top. And I think that each of us know, hopefully, this by now, is that you will need to put your name, then you'll need to put the professor's name, then you'll need to put the full name of the class, and then you'll need to put the date written in proper MLA format, which is date, month, year. Don't forget that you must add a header to the top, and that is their page number as well as the individual writer's last name. There's no comma in between here, although that is reflected on your paper. Make sure that you don't add that in. The other thing that I want to make you aware of, like I said before, is that this font will oftentimes be different than the font that you're required to use, which is a Times. There you go. So it's a Times New Roman. So we want to make sure that we're using that same font. So you'll more than likely have to change that for your header. Sound good? If you're wondering how to do the header, remember it's just insert. I like to insert page number and simply write my name in front of it rather than adding a header because oftentimes it can trail over depending on your formatting. Then you are going to also need to put a Yes, everybody, a title. So giving our speech a title. And remember that title is not bold. It's not underlined. It's simply the title. And it's double-spaced to from the date. And then we go into writing our general purpose, specific purpose, and thesis statement, which you will see right there is the letter A on your worksheet. So the first thing is, right, state the general purpose, specific purpose, and thesis statement. So make sure that you're writing that. Each of you already have that written. Simply copy and paste it from your topic approval and put it in. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm already halfway done. How exciting. Everybody on the same page right now? Or no? Like a head nod. Okay, I'm just going to ask for maybe a thumbs up then. Okay, great. Good job. Sorry. Then you are going to, like it says here for B, label the introduction, body, transitions, and conclusion. You don't need to have two conclusions. If you'll note, the introduction is labeled, the transitions each are labeled, and the body is labeled. However, the body is only labeled one time. It's right before you go into your first main point. So the body of the speech you don't have to write body every time you go into a new main poem. It's like main point 2, body, now we get it. We've already done there. And then when you get to the end, label the conclusion. So does everybody understand this? Yes.
You want it bold?
That is up to you. That is a preference of your own. If you would like to bold it, you may. You can also just leave it like that. If you feel good underlining it, you can underline it. That's a place where you could do it. So it's up to you as long as it's labeled so that we can see it. And then, so label those. Does anybody have any questions about the labeling? No, and how it works best? Okay, that's an aesthetic choice of your own. And then I want us to go into the next part about this consistent pattern of symbolization and indentation. So let's go ahead and I'm going to push the mute button on this, but I want to talk to you a bit about symbolization. So at the beginning of the class, we all talked a little bit about this thing called a symbol. Y'all remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So symbols. Do you remember the definition? Something that
Identifies. Represents.
Uh-huh. What? Something that represents, then use the word again.
Something else.
Yes! Okay, good. So something that represents something else. It was a crazy definition. Something that represents something. What else? Awesome sauce. Something that represents something else. We did this one before. Culturally, we know what? That when we put our thumb up, it means that's good or good job or yes or I got it, right? But when my daughter falls, she will oftentimes put a thumb up. Okay, right? And I know that she's okay. It is. Culturally, we all know that to be true. Same thing that if we were to see peace sign, and did we talk about this before? Okay, that contextually this can also change, right? And culturally this can also change. That if I'm out in front of the United Nations taking a photo, holding up my fingers, then you would see this as maybe communicating the idea of.
World peace.
But if I was at a USC game and I was holding it,
Second man, news.
it's their symbol, it's their fight on, right? So it's like something you learn the second that you get there and you can't hear the fight song without like your arm just going up randomly, like you'll be anywhere. It'll just happen. It's very interesting. And then the last thing that is if my daughter was maybe standing in front of birthday cake and holding up her fingers, we would think she's showing us she's 2. So right, this can, in all honesty, I mean there's a lot of different symbols there that can represent something else. And that something else is only understood in as much as our audience also understands that context. So much like we were talking about with those hypothetical examples, right? Last time, that it only works really if your audience is on that same page. So just like we talked about symbols before being something like language, because symbol, 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 all creating a symbol. And in the English language, this is, we know this word to be?
Apple.
An apple, or we can see, and again, that looks like a cherry, but thank you for just going with it. We could, maybe if I do a dollop, or now it's a tomato, I don't know. Okay, not my strongest point. However, symbolization, both ideas, right? So in any language, there's a specific set of symbols that represent meaning. And the same thing happens in communication studies and in public speaking when writing an outline. We all, in the discipline and in the speaking world, have a specific set of symbols that mean something else. Your traditional way of like outlining, maybe things like a dot or a line or just using an A or a 1 wherever it gets put in. But these, to me, don't communicate something. It's almost like looking at a different language if you were to do this, because I don't understand the symbolic representation. So for us, we need to get on the same language page of symbolizing. Your documents, like Word documents or Google documents, are more than likely going to want to symbolize in a particular format. Y'all ever been in that situation where you're spending like 8 hours like symbolizing, like trying to get the symbols away? Or you're like tabbing, tab, and then it goes farther away. Dang it! Do not spend too long on doing that. It is so incredibly annoying. And I know that feeling as well. You can very easily turn off your formatting at the top. On your toolbar, it's like format, stop automatic, or undo formatting. That's a click. If you have a new Word program, a drop-down menu will oftentimes pop up a dialog box the second that you put your first symbol, and you can click on that and hit stop automatic numbering. If neither of those work for you, go ahead and do a quick Google search, because that's what we do anyways, and say how to stop automatic numbering. Do not let this get in your way at all. Don't spend any more than 5 minutes formatting. However, let's learn the proper symbolization. So if you take that formatting off, it will help, because the formatting that is standardly done is not going to be the same as what's required, is pretty much what I'm saying. So we use a specific pattern of symbolization, and that symbolization will go in the order of number, letter, oh my gosh, no, sorry, number, letter, number, letter, number, letter. So you alternate each time. But how this consistent pattern of symbolization also works is starting to indicate where our ideas flow. And that's really what we're going to look at. So, let's turn this really quick. All of you in this class will have these things called main points. Each of us have between 2 to 5 main points in our speeches, yes? And y'all already know what those main points are?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All of your main points will be symbolized by utilizing Roman numerals. So that's where we will start. All Roman numerals communicate that whatever follows it is the main point of that paragraph or of that idea. It's almost like if you were going to have that topic sentence, if you're writing in paragraph format. It sets up everything that entire point is going to be about. So the main points are always indicated by Roman numerals. So you have Roman number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Here is something that people will often ask, the introduction and conclusion. If you're seeing the introduction and conclusion on page 26, or the introduction at least, you will see that it's written in paragraph format. Paragraph form or outline form are fine for your introduction. That is, again, something that's left up to the speaker. So if you would like to write it in paragraph form, you are more than welcome, and that means that your main points will start your Roman numeral 1. However, if you would like to outline your introduction will be what? The Roman numeral 1, and then your entire Roman numeral will be from there. Keep that in mind, and then that means that your first main point will be Roman numeral 2. All right, so you get that idea. So writing out in paragraph format or in outline format is up to you. Simply know that the symbolization just changes there. We will not write the introduction until the end of the speech, because the introduction is that thing that we can only know what to put in once we know the content of our speech, right? Because it sets up the entire thing. So hold off on writing your introduction, but continue to look for effective information that you could maybe use in your introduction, like attention getters or maybe stating the relevance of your topic. In the meantime, we know that our main points stay on this first line of being the Roman numerals. However, can the main point do the job on its own? Has your entire speech been explained yet? No! Why? Because this sentence isn't going to, I'm going to start screaming. Why? So that you're, because we know that this entire sentence is not going to make, let's start off by talking about clothes. Now we need to what? Talk about those clothes, absolutely. So the main point can't do it on its own. I like to say that main point needs to call in some backup. So it says backup, and it calls in some help. It needs some support. And so if we are going to support this main point, we need to start to come up with a new symbol to communicate that. And so we are going to go ahead and bring this down, and we are going to move over, and each indentation is going to fall underneath the first letter of the last sentence. So, for example, we will put our next symbol here, which is an A. So it's going to go number, letter, and all capital letters in your outline are going to represent what we call subpoints. What does sub mean? Below. Below. Submarine, subordinate, right? So this idea of being below the main point, and we know that it falls 1 below the main point. So this subpoint's job is to help explain the
Main point.
which is all working to support your,
Thesis.
well, the thesis is the main point and the specific purpose or the central idea. Everything that we are doing is to inform my audience about coffee. That is your, to inform, general purpose, to inform my audience about coffee,
Specific purpose.
specific purpose, right? Otherwise known as your, everybody starts with a central, ends with an idea.
Idea.
Okay, good. So the specific purpose or the central idea of your speech is the whole purpose, to inform my audience about blank, right? And the ways that we are doing that is through these main points. So the only reason that we're speaking this subpoint is to help describe the,
Main point.
which is working to describe the central
Central
idea.
idea.
Good job, everybody. But we need more. We need support. We need help. This, in fact, subpoint, your audience was saying, how, why, in what way? So we need to build it up. We need another idea. So what we do is we go ahead and we bring down and we go over. And underneath the first letter of the last sentence, we now are going to alternate with a new symbol of support. So a new symbol of support is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4 in those proper ways, rather than the Roman numerals. And that is going to be called our sub point. And the sub point falls to below the main point. So the sub point's job is to support the, which is all to support the, which is really working to support the everybody.
Central idea.
There we go, team. Nice job. Okay. But the sub point needs help, y'all. It needs more. So what do?
Sub.
Stop it. Absolutely. And so if we're going number, letter, number, then what we're going to do is we're going to go back with a letter. We've already used capital letters, so we can't do that again, because capital letters represent a subpoint. So underneath here, we are going to put an A, or a baby A, and this is going to be your sub point. And your sub point's job is to describe.
Sub point.
Yep, and then that's job is to describe the.
Sub point.
And then that's working to support the. And that's all working to describe the.
Central.
Fantastic, y'all. But we need help. We need more backup. What? Yes, that's right, we do. So we call in our next friend, and we can perfectly indent over underneath the line. And now we've gone number, letter, number, letter, number. Wait, am I out of them? No, I am not. Now, just like a uppercase, lowercase, I can do a lowercase number of Roman numerals. And those are I know, right? It's so fun. And those are indicated by little i's. So just like the large I, 1, little I, 1. So 1, and then 2, 3, etc. And those continue to go. So these little i's, or 1s, are going to be sub to the 4th point. We'll just write it like that. And that means that it falls 4 below the main point. So if you needed to go further than that, which you may, but you may not, it's a 5-minute speech. I don't know how much detail you need to go into, but if the claim does need to, you would then move forward to the double A, AB, AC, and then in fact after that you go back to 1s. But keep that in mind. Note that you more than likely will not have to go that far. So do we see here this idea that we have these symbols, right? Number, letter, number, letter, number, letter. And then we also have this proper form of indentation so that we start getting what? This framework of what idea supports the other. Oftentimes, is every A going to need a 1 or a 2? No. Is every A going to need all of this detail? Mm-mm. Sometimes your A can stop at the 1, and then your B actually is a 1A, 2, or 2BB, whatever. So it doesn't... oftentimes in English class, there's this like rule, like where there's an A, there must be a B, and where there's a B, there must be a C, and where there's 1, there has to be a 2. There doesn't. If you've done the job of explaining, then that's what you've done, and whatever that represents is what it represents. Does that make sense to y'all? Okay, fantastic. Let's go back to the sheet and look at a couple things. If we now have this pattern of symbolization and indentation, what I want you to drop down to is, in fact, F. Double space between each symbol. And if you've noticed, that's kind of what I'm doing here by double spacing between each symbol. However, what you will also notice, if you start to look up here, is that it's double spacing between each symbol, but if you'll notice, each point is what? Single spaced, absolutely, so that we know that idea is already there. So I wouldn't set your tabs to be a double space, I would set it to a single space, and simply every time you need to space, you just hit tab, tab, instead of doing it as the double space, because it will become frustrating. Does that make sense to you? Okay, you know your formatting and whatnot. So just keep in mind double space in between each symbol, not in between each idea on its own. And then for every sentence, there is a new symbol, because each sentence is a new idea. Symbols represent that these are specific ideas. So this is a new idea, this is a new idea, this is a new idea, this is a new idea. To have two sentences in under one would be two ideas in one, and it doesn't work that way. So every time you put a period, an exclamation point, or a question mark, you start a new. Yeah, so it's like every time you put a period, space, space. Period, space, space. Right? Period, space, space. Feel free to get that in your head. Period? Yeah, make a dance to it. It's so fun. No pressure. You don't have to make a dance, but I would. All right, so for double space between each symbol, point on F, G, for every sentence there is a new symbol, and E is our last one that I want to make clear. Every sentence should be written in full. So if you will notice, what makes a full sentence, friends?
Noun, verb.
Yeah, okay, a subject and a verb. Yes, good, that's our start. Then there's two other things I want you to tell me. What makes a good sentence? It starts with a capital letter and it ends with a. People forget punctuation and outlines because they're used to writing outlines like bullet points. And so don't forget that these are full sentences. And so therefore, when I read it, it should make sense as a full idea on its own. It should also have a capital letter to start, and it should have a period or an exclamation point or a question mark to end. Does that make sense? Yay! Okay, everybody, so everything must be written in full sentences. And that's the way that also you're going to start to see this becomes something that we can read in full, that we can potentially have everything that we are going to say written down in our outline. Any questions on those guidelines that I've gone through thus far? You're all good. So clear. Yes, good, thank you, Jennifer.
I'm so confused. Do you want us to do that, like a full outline of the weekend, or just one? So just do
One main point.
So an example would be like number 2, and then
Well, actually, the main point would be starting at 1, and it would go through until you were done with it. Does that make sense? Because your main point, how many main points do you have? Give me a thesis. Yours. To inform my audience about, I will describe by describing the. Were you doing northern region, southern region, eastern region, western region? Those are main points. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So for you, you're like, you know what I'm going to do? Just the northern region for Amanda. That's your first main point. So that would be essentially your communication one here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So your northern region is your main point. Your second main point is like western. Your third main point is southern, your fourth is thing. So you'll have Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, 3, and 4. Does that make sense? Does everybody? Yeah?
So basically we'd be doing Roman numeral 1. So we're not doing the intro. Do we do the header and everything?
Yes. You'll still do all of this. Just simply start at the transition.
So cut out the intro.
Yeah, unless you want to start writing one, you can, of course, label introduction, and then you can skip right down to transition if you wanted to, just for a place filler, but you don't need to write your introduction now.
And so we just have as many, you have D, that many,
Right?
but we just have as many as we need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
You only have as many as you need.
Okay.
So let's talk really quickly. If each of you wanted to do so, could you write your thesis at the top, and then you would know what your main points were symbolized as? Okay, good. You would know how to do that? Okay, fantastic. I want to just make sure of that before we go forward. Okay. Now, moving on. Let's cruise over here, because we'll do a bit of a sample, and also I want to show you something that I believe will assist a bit better. One, two, you're welcome. 1, 2, 3. These are handouts that are under the transitions. I'm going to, tab on your Canvas page. But I wanted to hand them out at this time because there's some helpful information in regards to introducing your citations, and then also some great linking words. So if you cruise on over to this first page, if you'll notice, and I'm going to preface this before we even get into it, but if you're looking at the first page, these are signal phrases for summarizing and paraphrasing and quoting. And we talked a little bit last time that summarizing and paraphrasing and quoting are three different ways that we can incorporate our supporting materials. So did you all read a little bit about quoting? Summarizing, paraphrasing? Don't worry. We'll go back to that in 2 shakes. The good news here is that what we always need to do you remember when you read your MLA handouts and there was that thing called attributions in the back? What it meant was the idea that you are attributing where you got that information. In public speaking, it's a little bit different than in writing when we give credit to whom is speaking. And so we need to situate the work to our audience out loud rather than inputting it into our work in a fluid manner as you would in writing. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we were thinking about, I feel like I maybe got mildly off track there, but that's okay. So for example, we have to use 3 outside sources in our speech, at least 3. When we are writing, and when we're used to writing our sources inside of our work, and remind me if I already talked about this, we will oftentimes write our sentence, and then at the end we will put the author and page number because the reader knows and can see this parenthetical citation. And what you know as an academic reader is that whatever came before that parenthetical representation is taken from that place, or whatever the concept is. So whether this is a quotation or a paraphrase or a summary, we'll know from the parenthetical representation is taken somewhere else. In writing, we will fluidly oftentimes not include any attributions at the beginning of sentences because we don't want to disrupt the flow of the language. Does that make sense to y'all? So it's not like they're going to be like, according to, and da-da-da-da-da, and blah, 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 because it can become distracting. And so oftentimes in writing we'll do this because we know that the reader can interpret that concept and the flow becomes more clear. In speaking, does your audience have a paper in front of them? Do they know that that word you just said came from somewhere else even though you cited it in the work? No. And what we have to do is we have to say that out loud instead. We can, of course, rely on our parenthetical representation to ensure that we are not plagiarizing. However, MLA format allows for us to give credit to our the person of whom wrote the work, or the persons, and then in turn delete the parenthetical representation. And I'm going to walk you through this and what that means in real terminology in a second. The reason that I'm handing these out to you now is so that you can start to get a good idea or some other alternatives as to how to introduce things like statistics, quotations, examples, testimonies. It will oftentimes be good for you to vary your wording. This will also give you some different elements that you can use, not only within this class, but well beyond this class if you wanted as well. And you can utilize these these ways that we can set it up. The other thing that you have on the back here are these linking words, these phrases and linking words. And in particular contexts, if we were thinking about it, for examples or support or emphasis, another key point, most compelling evidence, point often overlooked, markedly, specifically, for example, for instance, with this in mind, in general, to demonstrate some of these different words that we oftentimes don't use and we're constantly going, for example, for example, for example, or they said, they said, they said. We can diversify our language a little bit more. We're not only introducing, but when our own work, when we're switching ideas, when we're signposting. So keep this in your back pocket as you go forward and you begin your writing, and start to see if there's different wording or language that you can utilize in order to introduce and support the claims. That we'll put aside for the time being, because what I want each of us to do now is to go over the pattern of organization. So if we were going, and what I'm going to have us do is we're going to go through this together. How many of us in our lives have ever made a chocolate chip cookie? Okay, how many of us have ever eaten a chocolate chip cookie? Oh, great, so we can all play along. Fantastic, okay? This is, for example, if I was doing this speech today, which we wouldn't do a process speech, but we're going to do this one just for the fun of it. If I had a thesis statement that was to inform you all how to make a chocolate chip cookie, central idea, I will first describe the ingredients that are necessary. Then I will tell you a little bit how all of those ingredients get put together. And finally, I will offer you some alternative ingredients for those who have dietary or allergy needs. That's my first main point. Yes?
The ingredients.
Oh. I'm so glad that you were, yes, listening. Fantastic. Okay, good. So it's the ingredients that we need. Now I'm going to go around. I'm going to call on each of you. Do not help each other out. You're going to want to. But don't let that person work on it, okay? Here we go. I know, people have never been so excited about outlining until you see this. So, you want to start me out, Ashley? Oh my God. I'm going to start with my first main point, and that is going to be an A.
That's going to be your first topic that you're going to be discussing. So you're going to be discussing what ingredients you'll need for cookies.
Uh-huh. And the A?
The central idea.
Well, what would an A represent? Is that my symbol that I'm going to use to write my main point?
Yes.
All main points are written with, look down at your outlining handout. Yep. See, everybody wants to know. All main points are written with, look at the symbolization on the outlining, page 25.
Roman numerals.
Yes, okay, good. So we know that 1 is going to be the ingredients, right? 2 is going to be the preparation. 3 would be diet and allergy. Does that make sense? Okay, fantastic. Yes. So you are going to put a Roman numeral 1. And then I'm going to write simply the word ingredients. Ashley, would I? No.
Oh, right.
Because it's a what?
It needs to be more specific.
Like written in a what? Get out of town. So, can you tell it to me in a full sentence? Go.
The first thing you'll say is, first I'll be discussing the ingredients needed to make chocolate chip cookies.
Great. Now let's hold there, because we can't start the main point right away. What do we need before the main point?
A transition.
Oh my goodness! This is the key, everybody. I can't tell you how many individuals oftentimes miss this, because this transition and main point division is what's going to set you up for organizational success. Don't forget to write this transition on your sample outline. Here we go. If we have a transition, And we know that a transition will typically include somebody's what? 3 things.
Central idea.
Central idea,
Signpost.
signpost, and first, to tell you about my family. Oh, I'll tell you about my family for you to get to know me better. Y'all remember this? Signpost, central idea, main point. For you to understand how this signifies love, I'll tell you about who was in it and where we were. Remember these? So, now Ashley, why don't you say that sentence one more time?
First, I'll be discussing the ingredients needed to make chocolate chip cookies.
Yes! B. Did you say discussing?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. The ingredients necessary to make, I'm just going to put CCC for the time of purpose, but you write that out. Okay. Fantastic. So now what do we put on that main point? This is where people will get confused. Wait, I already said it. But the main set point is going to set up the what? First, I'll tell you about the ingredients. So, what about those ingredients? What can we think about those ingredients? How many ingredients are there? These are the ways that you can start thinking about reworking this sentence to summarize the main point, but to not restate and repeat that thesis statement. Yeah?
Could you say like the ingredients include blank, 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 blank?
You could, but because there are so many ingredients, it may not work to list them all out. However, if there were only 2 things necessary, let's say, or for example, if you're going to a particular region and you were going to talk, because your job, you're talking about, for example, Guatemala, and you're talking about the specific, what are they, the attractions, like the places like that we should visit, the attractions of Guatemala. In that case, you could say something like, and you could list out, in the northern region, there are 2 specific areas I will be looking at. One is blank and one is the other. And then you could list it out there. But for ingredients, there's like 12 different ingredients, which we could in fact write as well.
So then we could say like you'll mix your wet ingredients and dry ingredients and then go into the separate room.
Oh my gosh, I love that! Oh, that is such a fun idea! Okay, good. So why don't we lay that out as like a main point?
Okay.
So what I want you, oh yeah, but it's okay. But what I want you to all start thinking about are things about, like, what am I going to talk about in this main point, right? And how is this going to be maybe broken down? Are there specific topics, your subpoints, are those grouped into different categories? So if we're talking about locations, like those attractions can be your subpoint. If you're talking about like symptoms of a disease, those symptoms can be your specific subpoints, right? So it's like, we'll start off with the 3 different symptoms that one would look for when diagnosing scoliosis, right? So that would be something like that. So we could say something to the extent of, for the main point, ingredients for the chocolate chip cookie contain both dry and wet materials, something like that. Materials doesn't sound right, but I'm going to go with it in the interest of time. If we were doing that, we would know that first comes the
Dry.
oh my gosh, fantastic. So let us start out. One of the dry ingredients would be our first thing to talk about. So we'll need to lay that out. Like, let's let our audience know that we're going to lay out those dry ingredients first. So I'm going to put a 2 here, and nobody else talk, right here. I'm going to put a 2 there. No. Good. Why wouldn't I put a 2 there? Because it's not a? See, be how you want to say it? No. Okay, good. It's not a main point. So what am I going to use now? Because I need to do what?
Subpoint, is it? Great.
Yeah, what symbol am I going to use?
A letter?
Like Z?
A?
Ah, yes, good. Let's go in alphabetical order. Fantastic. I'm going to put it on this line over here.
No.
No, I'm going to put it.
Underneath the first letter.
Fantastic. So could you write in a sentence that we're going to be doing the dry ingredients? How would you say that? If you were talking to your friends, you'd be like, if we're doing a cooking show, it's just saying, like, okay, if I just said the ingredients for the chocolate chip cookie contain both dry and wet ingredients. Let's
Talk about the dry ingredients.
Is that, yes, that would be suffice, because that's what we're going to do. Does that feel good to you? Yes, okay, good. Let's gather, right, those dry ingredients to start, period. Fantastic. Let's talk about some of the dry ingredients. Don't give me the good one yet. Give me like the filler stuff. What's one ingredient?
Flour, chocolate chips,
Not the good stuff. The filler stuff.
flour.
Ah, okay, great. Let's go with it. Fantastic. So I'm going to put a B here.
Oh, no,
Why would I not put a B?
because you're going into the dry ingredients.
Because I need to support the dry ingredient. I need to explain the dry ingredients. I would only use a B if I was talking about another.
Like build back material.
Okay, fantastic. So now what am I going to use?
One.
Fantastic. And can you put that in a sentence? If I was like on a cooking show, what am I saying? And you have your ingredient.
You need 1 cup of flour.
Amazing! I love it. You don't even have to be specific. You will need, and we can say a cup if you want to, 1 cup of flour. I love it. Fantastic. What's another dry ingredient? Nothing crazy. It's the good stuff. The stuff that gets you all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Sugar.
You want to do that one?
Yeah.
Have you made the chocolate chip cookie before?
No.
Have you made the chocolate chip cookie? Yes. In the making of the chocolate chip cookie, is it just 1 sugar?
One piece.
And a lot of it. Anybody else make a chocolate chip cookie? Yeah?
Eggs, brown sugar.
Brown sugar and?
Wait.
And white sugar.
Yeah! So there's actually how many types of sugar?
2.
Holy moly! Fantastic. Let's say that, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to now do the sugar, but I'm going to put an A here to describe the sugar.
No.
Ah! See, you all are so excited about talking.
Would it be a 2 then?
Why?
Because you're talking about a different ingredient?
Yes! I would only use an A
It's a sub-point to the other.
if I was describing the
Sugar.
Flour.
Yeah.
flour. I would only use an A if I was describing the flour. I'm not describing that flour, am I? No! Okay, fantastic. So I will use you were right, 2, fantastic. And I will say something like, in a full sentence, go ahead, play it. We'll switch over.
Me?
Yeah.
In order to sweeten up this mix, you will need 2 cups of sugar.
There's your creativity. Yes, in order to sweeten up. Oh, is that me? It's not me. My computer's gonna die. Okay. In order to sweeten up this mix, you will need 2, and don't write 2 like that, types, write it in full, types of sugar. Fantastic. Okay, great. So we'll need 2 types of sugar. Is your audience saying, what, how, in what way?
In these ways.
They probably are, if you don't know how to make it, right? Because many of us are like, I don't know, are you sure that's what you do? Huh? Who would have guessed, right? Fantastic. So let's go ahead, Musa. You know we need white sugar, we need brown sugar. So let's go ahead and write that out. So I'm going to put a 3.
No,
What am I going to put?
you're gonna put 8
Why?
because you're describing, talking about the 2 sugars.
Fantastic. So what would my A be?
Brown sugar.
Just those 2 words?
You will need brown and white sugar.
Okay, fantastic. You will need brown sugar, and in the interest of fun and making it all happen, let's do another sentence, and I will put an I here. Why wouldn't it be an I? It would only be an I if I was describing. Fantastic. So in turn, it is now a B. Fantastic, because these are the 2 types, and we will say,
And you'll need white sugar.
amazing. So proud of you all. Good. Now. Okay, nobody trip. You will need brown sugar. You also need white sugar. I want to continue this, so I'm going to go over here. If we were to continue, let's continue over here. Now we can talk about the creme de la creme. Are you ready? Daniel, what's the good part?
The best part, chocolate chip cookies. I mean chocolate chip.
Yeah!
Cookies in your cookies.
Cookies.
So if I'm going to talk about those chocolate chips, what symbol am I going to use?
Chocolate chip should be 3.
Fantastic. Why wouldn't it be in B?
That's about sugar.
Oh, okay, fantastic. It would, no, that was about, 2 was about sugar. Why wouldn't it be 3? I mean, why wouldn't it be a B? So sorry.
You already have a B.
You mean a C?
You need C.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant a big B.
You should try to see if I'm paying attention.
Totally but different. Okay, let's just go with it. 3. Yeah, so you would need a 3 because it's another type of ingredient, right? Following along those same lines. We all know now that our sub points are going to be our ingredients. So 3, can you say something fun like,
Yeah, to make the best chocolate chip cookies, you need chocolate chips.
okay.
Is that fun?
That's great. That's beautiful. Let's do it. That's the best way you can do it.
Just kidding. I won't. Don't write that. But the CCC, I know. Yeah,
Otherwise, you just made C.
Yep, you just made a C cookie. All right, now let's try and talk about some of this chocolate chips. So, let's do tell me. Let's make out a brand of chocolate chip. Ooh, fun! Fun! So let's say I maybe want to talk about some brands of chocolate chips. I'm going to put a 4 here. Because it's going to? Amazing! So could you use that in a sentence? You may want to use.
You could use Hershey chocolate chips.
Oh, I love it. Want to use Hershey chocolate chips. Fantastic. What's another brand that we make?
Why is the A lowercase?
Because we've already done our big A and our big B are going to be dry and wet.
True, you're right.
And we're supporting A, big thing. These are great questions. That's why we do it, right? Fantastic. What's another brand?
It's Ghirardelli.
Oh, fun! Fantastic. So I'm going to put a little I here.
These are expensive cookies.
Why would I not put an I? I would only use the little I if I was describing the, use it in language. Hershey's chocolate chips. Yeah, don't worry about like sub points at this point. No, like, is it supporting the idea above it or is it not type thing, okay? So good idea, we're using a B and we could say something like, or you
You can also use
Amazing.
Talking about the classic.
Yes, give me the classic.
If you
Go,
want to
Murray.
make the classic
What
chocolate
is
chip, use Nestle Toll House.
Busy 2000, like Friends. You ever see that Friends episode?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you did. Fantastic. So, on the C, how would you say it in a full sentence?
But my favorite and the classic is the Nestle Toll House chocolate chip.
Yes. Okay, great. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of something. Let's cruise back on over to the idea here on D, if everybody's looking at their sheet. We have to cite our sources in our speech, and we need to cite them out loud. We have to cite them parenthetically, and then we also need to cite them in the works cited page. Out loud citation work, if you flip on over or flip back to page 31 in your packet, you are going to see some examples of how and what is needed to incorporate sources within your speech. I have written out a list of criteria for you. On that page, it says that there are 5 different things that we should maybe hear about. And those 5 different things listed under D are the, everybody, it's right there, just give it to me.
Awesome.
Author, author's title, publication, article title, and year. Is every source that you find going to have this information? No, we know that now, right? The websites, they may not have any of this except for a date. Correct? And then some articles don't have authors. It's simply like a staff writer. So whatever information you can gather is going to be key to setting up your quotation, your example, your testimony, your statistic. But we have to think about our audience and what builds the credibility. Yeah?
What if there are multiple authors?
You can, so that's written in the rules on that paper that you can go ahead and read about on page 31. If we have multiple authors, as it's showing you on page, much like that of writing, I can just give it to you without having you look it up, but much like that of writing, you're not going to mention every single author, but instead you'll mention the first 3 last names or 2 last names, and then you'll say and other contributors, or you can also say et al., which allows us to know that you are, that is going forward. Et al. Is typically in writing and allows you to know that there's more than simply those 3, because it doesn't want you to have to list out like all 17. However, if there's 2, you can say those out loud. If there's 3, you can say those out loud. But if there's more than that, you can say blah, 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 and 5 other contributors stated that. Does that make sense to you? So you don't have to go into all of their names. Now let's say you use the same source twice. Do I need to say all of that information again? No. But instead, however you referenced it the first time, in that same article by so-and-so, or in that same website, blah, or in that same publication, But again, let's think about what our audience knows, or how much our audience knows, and also what they need to hear. So if we're talking about the author, that's the individual of whom wrote the work, the article, whatever you are presenting. The author's title, what is that? Their
Your first and only?
position at the paper?
Like the
or-
position that they have, because it could be that sure, if they're a staff writer, that's fine, but let's say that we're talking about, again, an issue of like heart issues, like I did
Oh, a
tell you about that.
cardiologist.
We want to know their credentials. What makes that individual worthy of stating that information? So if I'm saying like Amanda Whitten, you're like, who's that? What do they know about this topic? It's like Amanda Whitten, head of cardiology. You're like, ooh, gives it some weight. Does that make sense to y'all? So make sure that if you do not have a known writer or somebody who's known in the industry that your audience would be aware of, you give that attribution. The other thing is the publication. The publication is whatever the book is, or perchance it's a magazine title or a journal title or a podcast or perchance a website. This is where you would use it. Now, a website, if I said like www.nike.com, we understand what that is. But if I'm simply saying instead, according to jpdr.com, and then I go into the information, you're like, what's JPDR? Those websites may need some clarification. They may need some context and some credibility behind them to lend warrant to it. So you don't have to say the www, by the way. Instead, you would just say, like, according to Nike.com in an article, if there is an article on their site, or according to the Nike.com webpage, or according to the values page of Nike.com, it says that, right? So we can say something in that way.
So but if it was that W blah blah blah, you'd say a site relating to
Yes.
So just give a little.
What made it credible for you, like when
Okay.
you were looking at it, type thing? That's what, like, once you go through it. Yeah.
Do we have to say Nike.com, or can we say like according to Nike's website?
You say Nike's website, we get it. Yeah, whatever's easiest for you. Good question. And then article title, if there is one. And then the year or the date, whatever you can. Not when you accessed it, but when it was written. So in this case, we could say something like, and I'm going to set it up to let my audience know something's coming. I'm not the only one who believes in Nestle Toll House chocolate chips. What do you think is coming up?
A statistic?
Maybe somebody else who what?
Who loves it?
Who believes in it, right? So what letter am I going to use to support that?
Oh.
I gave it away. What letter? Well, I would only do 2 if I'm still talking about the classics. Now I want to talk about the person who's going to talk about that classic.
But you can't just wrap it all in one. You can't just say that all within. Okay, but this. Okay.
I'm doing this for the fun.
Okay,
If
yeah,
you can
okay.
synthesize it into one sentence, go for it.
Okay.
Good, everybody. This is where you're like, I'm not going to go that far in. Maybe you will. That's where you will do the AA. What?
Oh.
Letter, number. And we can say something like, Rachel Ray, acclaimed chef, wrote an article titled, Which chip in this month's Better Homes and Gardens magazine that states, comma, quote, Nestle Toll House chocolate chips are by far the best to cook with and eat, end quote. Now, as I said, because MLA, if I can state this information up front, in parenthetical representation back here, I don't need to write her last name and the page number because I've already written it. So instead, it would simply be the page number and the period goes on the outside. Does this make sense to y'all? And so I've stated this beforehand, but what if we don't have a direct quotation? What if it's a summary? Instead of saying states, suggests, she discussed, she, and again, she what? Claims. Okay, great. We could use claims. But you, sure, she did. Yeah, go ahead.
What if it's on the website? What page number?
There is none.
So just leave.
You leave it blank, and if you set up the website up here, then there's nothing you need to put here. But if you were citing like maybe multiple things again, then just for future reference, if you were writing it, then you would like refer to the past one, and then you could put simply you put only to the .com at the end. So it'd be like, it wouldn't be any like backslash. That's all on that page as well. That we, if you go back to that APA, it'll show you a little bit of that. So this essentially is the format that you're going to be using. A lot of individuals will get somewhat confused if you start to simply write in this way. So some helpful hints for me are write in, maybe make a skeleton first, like what your A's and your B's and your C's will be, and then go from there. If you can get those subpoints down and you can get that transition main point subpoint, you'll be in really good shape. So the preparation outline has everything written as it's going to be presented, everything in full sentences, a new symbol for each point. Everything should be cited. You should have proper MLA formatting. Make sure that you include the body introduction and those different labels. Make sure that you include the general purpose, specific purpose thesis statement on top so we know what you're speaking about. Don't you forget those transitions. It's majorly important. Double space between each symbol. Make sure you add a title. But if you were going to, really quick, write your speaker's outline, and that's really what I wanted to make clear, which is the one down at the bottom, is that speaker's outline should only contain keywords and phrases of what you're going to write about, which you already know. It's incredibly important that you keep the same format, but only keep keywords and phrases. What should be written out in full are quotations. And why is that? They're not your words. So you're more than welcome to read those word for word if you would like to. But it should look something like this. So for example, if we wanted to, can we go back? Will you start us off? What's the transition? Transition.
Oh,
just give it to me.
First, I will talk about the chocolate ingredients.
Fantastic. Ashley, and then the first main point was?
The first main point was the ingredients that we'll be discussing in order to make chocolate chip cookies.
Are both
dry ingredients and wet ingredients.
Fantastic. And then, what's the first one?
Dry ingredients.
How would you say it in a full sentence?
We'll be using our dry ingredients.
Great. And then?
The first ingredient that we're going to use is going to be flour.
Yes. Fantastic.
Flour.
Flour
And then we will need 2 types of sugar.
Fantastic. We're here. Say it in a full sentence.
Brown sugar?
There you go. You got it, Anne.
Another type of sugar is white sugar.
Fantastic. Did you say it exactly as we wrote it? Did any of you need to look at the paper? All you saw were these ingredients and you knew how to say it, right? It's because we what? We wrote it. We practiced it while we wrote it. We wrote it together, and you know just by looking down, if you say it any other way, ain't no big thing. Nobody cares. All right, y'all. So what you going to do this weekend? Write what?